Where are we and why are we here?
We're in O'Connell Street on Carlisle Bridge in Dublin, and we're here to play for the Irish people.
Okay, and it's you and a group of other bands from Newfoundland, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Great Big Sea, which is us,
Right.
Ron Hynes Band, Anita and Pamela Morgan, and the Plankerdown Band from St. John's.
This is O'Connell Street. And why is it called O'Connell Street again?
It's named after Daniel O'Connell, who was famous for keeping the peace in Ireland after the many rebellions they had over the years. He came about in late 1800s and actually he established a lasting peace, and the street is named for him. That's him up there. She was a sweetheart in Dublin. She passed away, and they immortalized her here and wrote a song about her, which traveled over to the States. She's beautiful, isn't she?
Yeah. Well, she wasn't until somebody wrote that horrible thing on the top.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That happens everywhere, though. What can you do? Now, there's a lot of similarities between the culture in Newfoundland and the culture in Ireland.
Well, they're both isolated islands, you know, and that's the big thing that determines the culture of both Ireland and Newfoundland. They're islands isolated off on their own that have had to develop their own culture and their own, their own architecture, their own music, their own art. That's where the big similarities lie.
Well, we are at O'Donoghue's.
O'Donoghue's Pub, the musical historical landmark here, home of the Dubliners.
I ordered for you.
Did you? Okay, great. Thank you.
2 pints of another Irish tradition, and that would be
Guinness.
Pints of Guinness.
Pints of Guinness. The Guinness in Dublin is the best it is anywhere because it's made here in Dublin. The factory's just over there, and I think the bars have direct lines to the factory.
It just comes like right out.
Look at this. Look at that. My
Now,
God.
that.
Take a picture of this because it's too good to drink.
It is.
It's amazing. Cheers.
Cheers.
O'Donoghue's Pub is one of the oldest pubs in Dublin, always famous for its music and sessions. Many famous people lived here on the street, Miriam Rowe, Oscar Wilde, Daniel O'Connell, all these crowd. It's also home of the famous Irish band, the Dubliners, who took Irish music and made it very famous in the States and in the UK, all around the UK. And the boys are right there on the wall, you could see them. They were kind of a rowdy bunch. They were the predecessors of the Pogues, probably the Pogues about 25, 30 years ago. Just as rowdy a reputation.
Sunny County's a road, though he's barely a man. There ain't all that to do, still he does what he can. And he watches the sea from a room by the stairs, and the waves keep on rolling. They've done that for years and for years.
Yes, come in.
Well, hello. Hello.
Oh, Simon. Oh, you're still up?
I'm still up, yeah.
Well, the tip of the Iceberg Tour continues with Mr. Ron Hynes, and you just get comfy here. Whoops. Now, does this bed compare to the one you've got at home, say?
It's a little smaller than the one I have at home, and the one I have at home has a wife next to me. And,
that's always an element.
Yeah. But you're a reasonable facsimile there.
Well, we'll see how the interview goes. And, who knows? With a group of traditional musicians from Newfoundland, touring in Ireland and Scotland and England, bringing the music from Newfoundland over here. Mm-hmm. But you're considered more of a country chappie.
Yeah, I kind of got slotted in that genre. I don't think of myself as a country singer at all. I sort of take the R out of country. I'm like a county singer. To think of myself as a country singer is a bit strange. I'm a singer-songwriter from around the Bay, Newfoundland. I mean, it's about as rural country as you're going to get. But it ain't the Deep South.
I still got my high school jacket, still got my high school ring. Tucked in the corner of my wallet is a tattered photo of you. Yet I have to cry, staring back at silent eyes. I saw a star burn
much do you draw from traditional Irish or Celtic influences?
Lately, I have a lot more. You know, there's a great quote from Dylan. He says, "You open your eyes and your ears, and you're automatically influenced." You know, I'm influenced by the place that I come from. It colors everything that I do.
Oh, summer don't go away. I am here. Help us out. And your daddy's a sailor, and he never comes home. And the nights get so long, and the silence goes on, and I'm feeling so tired. I'm not all that strong. Sonny carries a load. He is barely a man. There's not all that much to do, still he does the best he can. And he lives in a room by the top of the stairs, and the sea keeps on rolling in. It's done that for years.
I've had a song that's been in the charts over here since '84. I don't think it's ever left the charts. And it's done really, really well over here, even though somewhere along the line, whoever was bringing it over, a lot of the lyric kind of fell out of the plane, I think, into the Atlantic, and by the time they got over here, whoever had it had a few too many Black and Cokes, I think, the night before he left. Missed a few of the verses and stuff. Yeah, but it's a song called Sonny's Dream, and it just kind of fell into the whole oral tradition over here, you know. And I think, especially over in Ireland, I don't think that like a word like, you know, plagiarism is even in their dictionary.
What do you think is the best song you've ever written, or the strongest song?
I don't have one. I probably haven't written it yet. My favorite song that I've written is a song called Sorry Laurie, which I wrote for my daughter. But, you know, if I had to stop and think, okay, that's the best thing that I've ever done, then that's where the measure ends. And you think, well, everything else is going to be a little less than that, you know. It goes, I'm sorry, Laurie. It was all just a big mistake. And that's my side of the story. I meant to give and I could only take. And so I got away scot-free. And no one could put chains on me. But then you came back to me, clear out of the blue. So I won't put chains on you.
Wow, Much Music is flirting with an unbelievable prize. Unbelievable. It's so cool. Don't do it, man. It's fully loaded. It's the Flirtmobile. You heard right. Much Music and Flirt by Clairol want to give you a new neon from Chrysler. Flirt, the no-commitment color that conditions your hair, is offering you the chance to win the latest in colorized accessories. Your very own 95 neon from Chrysler. Pick up a ballot where you buy Flirt by Clairol, then watch Much Music for the Flirtmobile graphic to appear in a different video in a different flirtatious color every day. Once you spot it, write down the name of the video you saw it on and send it along with a Flirt proof of purchase to Flirtmobile, care of Much Music. So drive away a winner and give your color a little kick today.
Holyfield presents Pat Benatar, her greatest hit. 16 of the hottest tracks from the undisputed queen of rock and roll. From her first hit, Heartbreaker, to mega hits like Fire and Ice, they're all here. Pat Benatar's greatest hits, including Treat Me Right and the smash Love is a Battlefield. Pat Benatar's greatest hits, on cassette or CD from Polytel, and in stores now.
Well, here you are. Follow me.
Looks nice and safe. Safe when you get inside, I think.
Great! Belfast rocks! Yeah!
Hit your partner, Sally Bow, hit your partner, Sally Brown, Bow, couldn't be more sharper all around the circle. Susan White, she's outside, her petticoat walks the border, while Olsen Oliver in the dark, he kissed her in the corner. Hit your partner, Sally Bow, hit your partner, Sally Brown, Bow, couldn't be more sharper all around the circle. Heist to buy the bills to boat, heist to buy
That Union Jack flying up there that causes quite a bone of contention.
Oh, there's a ceasefire on now, so we're safe, apparently.
So far, so good. The music that you perform is Newfoundland music, but it's tinged in Irish traditions.
Well, most of the tunes that we do in our show, for example, I learned, the ones that I knew, I learned from my folks, who learned from, you know, Clancy Brothers records and various traditional records, all of which came from the parts of the, you know, of Ireland. You hear a lot of songs of triumph, and you hear a lot of songs of hope from both parts of the world too. When you say there's songs about, you know, the way things might be next week, or the way things could have been, or this is how we hope things will work out, even despite the, you know, the less than perfect situations that we're in right now.
And in Newfoundland, in the process of the music coming from Ireland, England, all the structure disappeared. What's left is the kind of the wild melody that was there in the first place. So when, you know, when I play a tune that originated in Ireland and this side of the Atlantic, you know, it's lost a lot of the meter and the tone and everything else, and it's become a wilder, faster, more exciting thing in the process of going to Newfoundland.
Where Newfoundland is?
Oh, I do, in Canada.
In Canada?
Oh, I do.
Do you know anybody from Newfoundland?
No.
Have you ever been?
No.
Do you want to go?
Not
Do you know where Newfoundland is?
Newfoundland?
Yeah.
No, it's a long way, a long bit away.
Do you think you'd be interested in coming to visit our lovely country?
Well, it cost a bit of money, that. No, you wouldn't have enough there.
We came...
He's like myself, he's broke.
Yeah, we're broke too.
I know, I believe it.
What do you think about the ceasefire signing today?
It's up there 25, 26 years. I think we've had enough.
What's going on here? One pal, let's go. Do you know where Newfoundland is?
No.
Have you ever heard of Newfoundland?
Aye.
What do you think it is?
Finland?
You know where Newfoundland is?
Oh, aye, certainly. It's the nearest thing to home.
They say it is.
Shul, 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 garo, shul, go, suck it, back, shul, garo, shul, gadas, agasereli, isko de avonim slon. My love is gone to France to seek his fortune in advance. When he comes home, I'll get my chance. Isko de avonim slon. Shul, 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 go, sakera, shul, go, shul, gadas, agasereli, isko de avonim slon. I'll go up on yonder hill and there I'll pretend.
Tá níos go hauling, Simon.
Which means?
It's a lovely evening. Most of the songs Pamela and I do come from actual people singing, and most of them weren't written down. The ones on our album, I don't think any of them were ever written down by the people. You know, there are versions of them that exist in Ireland or Scotland or England or Wales somewhere, but the Newfoundland versions, not very many of them have been written.
A song like Soulagraw?
Soulagraw, yeah.
Where did you find that song?
We found that in Branch in St. Mary's Bay in Newfoundland, and the man who was singing it didn't realize, well, he knew he was singing Irish, but he didn't have any meaning for the words he was singing, and he didn't really have the words themselves. He was just saying sounds that he remembered from his youth, and he was almost 90 when we got that song from him. So evidently the people who lived in Branch and on the Cape Shore used to speak Irish when they first came to Newfoundland, and then they were assimilated with the rest of the English-speaking people there.
I'll tie my petticoats, dye them red around the world. I'll beg my bread till my parents wish me dead. Isko de avonim slon. Shul, 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 garo, shul, go, sakeva, shul, garo, shul, gadas, agasereli. Isko de avonim slon.
Some of the words that you sing in Irish or Gaelic, Do you understand what you're singing? Or?
Yes. I wouldn't be able to sing a song, personally speaking, I wouldn't be able to sing a song that I didn't know what the words meant. I just wouldn't be able to do that. So we took the sounds that John Joe English was making, and we brought them into a friend of ours. Ellie O'Brien is a farmer, lives outside of St. John's there, and he taught himself Irish, and his grandmother was an Irish speaker. So we managed to construct Gaelic words, Irish words, that made sense from the sounds that John Joe remembered. So that's how that chorus came about.
Gaelic, keeping it alive. Is that sort of something that you would like to do, trying to keep Irish languages alive? Because even in Ireland, it seems it's a dying sort of language.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because the English beat the Irish out of people here in this country. You know, they banned it with the invasion of Oliver Cromwell. I mean, they weren't allowed to speak their own language in this country, which is a great shame. It's a great shame. But there are places where, I mean, this isn't a part of the Gaeltacht, but there are places in Ireland that are they keep the traditions going very actively, and there's a crowd of people very interested in making sure that their children speak Irish and so on. But Irish is only one of 5 or 6 Gaelic languages that have almost died out all over the world now. I mean, Manx, Welsh, Scottish Gaelic, you know, Breton. Breton is another type of Gaelic.
Does it all come from the same source?
Basically, the root is, the basic root is the same.
And where did it come from?
From the Celts.
Are the differences, though, between traditional music in the east coast of Canada and traditional music in Ireland?
I think so. I think in Newfoundland, for example, there's a really strong song tradition, unaccompanied singing and so on. And in Ireland, the tradition seems to be more of an instrumental tradition.
Does that have a name to it, that type of singing? Just very stripped down to just the voice?
Here in Ireland, it's called Sean Nose singing, old-time singing.
One time I was tired of life, and I couldn't maintain my wife, and my family all around the table did sit. But I hummed a little song, and I said it's not for long. There's better times for us a-coming, yeah.
Songs seem a lot of them seem very sad.
Don't they? Yeah. People always are telling us this. My brother calls us the Morbid Sisters. It's just like if a song is worth singing, it's telling about some momentous thing that happened, like a shipwreck or somebody's heart got broken. You know, some momentous battle or something like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't bother to write a song about it.
Woman of Labrador, children round your cabin door, wondering when their daddy will be home. He's gone on the trapping line, seems like such a long, long time, since he waved his last farewell and left you alone.
And when you think of Irish women and women on the East Coast especially, they seem to have a sort of a strength that sort of comes out in everything that they do. They seem to head the family, and the men are sort of there, but it's the women that
Well, where I grew up, the women ran the community almost entirely, really. I mean, the men were out fishing, and they would sort of come into the houses to eat and to lie down and go to bed at night, but they spent their time down aboard their boats and in their fish stores and stages and so on. And the women just sort of ran everything else.
Woman of Labrador, those days are here no more. Wonder if your baby will ever understand the hardships that you endured when everyone you knew was poor, sharing everything they had and living off the land.
Wow, Much Music is flirting with an unbelievable prize. Unbelievable. It's so cool.
Don't do it, man.
It's fully loaded. It's the Flirtmobile. You heard right. Much Music and Flirt by Clairol want to give you a new neon from Chrysler. Flirt, the no-commitment color that conditions your hair, is offering you the chance to win the latest in colorized accessories. Your very own 95 neon from Chrysler. Pick up a ballot where you buy Flirt by Clairol, then watch Much Music for the Flirtmobile graphic to appear in a different video in a different flirtatious color every day. Once you spot it, write down the name of the video you saw it on and send it along with a flirt proof of purchase to Flirtmobile, care of Much Music. So drive away a winner and give your color a little kick today.
This or that. This or that.
What's that mean?
It means to dance. It means, actually, years ago when they used to build houses and they'd lay floorboards down and they'd have a party, and so everyone would come in and dance mad on the floorboards and plank them down into the further down, so then the next day they could come in and put the nails and drive them all the way home. So they'd plank her down, they'd hit the planks hard, and that'd be the dance, and that'd be planking her down. Now it means to sort of come over here now and plank her down over here now, sit down, and we'll have a little chat. Any sort of an expression that you can feel free to get out of it, you go right ahead.
We started actually as a recording project, and it was jazz and blues and that sort of thing, and we loved the album so much that we decided to go out and tour with it. Well, there's lots of bands that keep it traditional pure, and not so many that are doing more innovative things with it. And besides, you know, I mean, I've always felt that for music to continue on, for an old tradition to continue on, it has to be like reinterpreted in a contemporary form, in today's terms, for people to relate to it. I worked with Emile Benoit and Rufus Kinshard as well, toured around a lot with them. But their music, rather than, you know, when these men passed away, rather than their music going with them, what I've tried to do is learn all the tunes, and I've taken it upon myself to tape everything that they've ever played, everything that they could remember, and I'm transcribing all the tunes, and other fiddle players too around Newfoundland, and the end result will be a book. I'm going to publish a collection of, a definitive collection of Newfoundland instrumental music. Emile is a very unique Newfoundlander. First of all, he's French Newfoundlander, and there's only a small portion of our population that's French. I mean, so that makes him different. And plus, he was a composer. I mean, he knew a lot of traditional tunes and would play them, but chose to try to compose his own tunes, and he composed well over 100.
Say it when you're ready.
He was an entertainer. He used to love to, you know, make people laugh, get up on stage.
He was a showman. Besides being a fantastic musician, he was also a great showman. When Emile would get up on stage, you were there to see all of Emile, not just his music. You were there to see Emile, his whole personality, everything that he was.
Well, the waltzes that you do are very beautiful.
Well, it's an original composition of Emile Benoit's. inspired by seeing a piece of velvet clothing hanging on a clothesline. And it was blowing in the breeze, and he thought the movement of the velvet was so pretty, and he called it Velvet in the Wind.
We've heard a lot about reels and jigs, and we were wondering if you could show us the difference between a reel and a jig. Excuse me.
I could do that, yeah. Yeah, well, basically there are two different timings. The tempo and the feel is different. And the reason that you have these different tempos was for dancing. You know, there'll be different types of dances done to the different types of tunes. Right. So a jig is in 6/8 time. And the thing to remember about a jig is you can always go diddly, 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 diddly along with a jig. You know, right. It's like the one we were playing there a while ago. Yeah.
Can you dance a good jig? Can you dance a good jig? Can you dance a good jig? So
okay.
That's one way to remember.
But a reel is in 4/4 time, so it's entirely different tempos. So you can't go diddly diddly.
No. You can't be going diddly diddly to that. Why do you have so big an island?
I guess because they love good times and good music, and the Irish people are similar to the Newfoundland people. They're hardy and they work hard, they play hard, same as us.
And they know a good song when they hear it. In the merry month of June, from me home I started, left the girls at home, so sad and broken hearted, to father dear, kiss me darling, mother drank a pint of beer, me grief and tears. Did anybody see the birds, mind you? Oh, no. I just thought I'd bring that up.
It's kind of
yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
Okay, well, unless they start, if anybody sees them swooping down, we'll end this interview quick. Some of the themes, are they going to be sort of the same or different, or what's the deal for the next record?
It's going to be about half and half. It's going to be, well, the same structure, yeah. Original and traditional, and even the original stuff that we do write is using traditional instruments like the baron, the fiddle, and the whistles, and the accordion. So basically we can't tear ourselves away from the tradition, you know?
One interesting note, Sean, sorry to interrupt, is that this is made from sheep or goat skin, and as you notice right across the way, as soon as Sean mentioned that,
it's goat skin.
All those crowd went running to the other end. Their cousins, the goats, they're realizing their slaughter in this instrument, and they're immediately running in the other direction.
Come back, you're safe.
It's okay, it's goat.
It's goat.
We said goat.
Goat.
Unless they're massing, they're getting their goat friends, and they kind of come back and saw you guys out.
Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to double and whack for Lolly Rock. There I got away, my spare was never failing, landed on the quay just as the ship was sailing. Captain at me roared, headed over Paddy when I jumped aboard. Cabin bound for Paddy, down among the pigs, played some hardy rigs and some hardy jigs. The water round me bubble and went up holy head. Wish myself was dead or better fine instead of the rocky road to double and 1 to 3 for 5. Hey, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the ways to double and whack for Lolly Rock. The boys of Liverpool, oh, when we safely landed, called myself a fool. I could no longer stand it, blood began to boil. Temper I was losing for all errands on. They began abusing her on me, so says I'm a shillelagh, I'll apply. Galway boys, when they saw I was a hobbling with a loud array, joined in the affray, but quickly cleared the way for the rocky road to double and 1 to 3 for 5. Hey.
We have
tomorrow on The Morning Show, education on a shoestring budget. We'll continue our series on how schools in Newfoundland and Labrador are coping with their dwindling budgets. Heather Barrett reports from a school in Little Bay Islands where the lessons are high-tech, but the classes are crowded. That's on The Morning Show, 6 to 9 a.m. on CBC Radio.
Hello, I'm Greg Malone. Join me here on Over the Line, where terrible truth and frightening opinion find a home. We'll talk about the most controversial, awkward, embarrassing, dangerous topics, and love doing it, darlings. So call me up here on CBC Radio Sunday mornings.
In Newfoundland and Labrador, you're watching CBC Television. If you love fresh, delicious homemade pasta, then you need the Pasta Chef, the incredible pasta machine. Easy to use, just add flour, eggs, oil, and water. It automatically mixes and blends. No kneading or rolling. In only minutes, you have fresh pasta. Make mountains of spaghetti so fast and easy. Try vermicelli or angel hair with your favorite sauce for an Italian gourmet meal. Add herbs and spices for a tangy flavored fettuccine. Add carrot, beet, or tomato juice for a variety of tastes. Make cornmeal or whole wheat macaroni. Add spinach juice for spinach lasagna, a healthy treat. You can also make rigatoni, linguine, gnocchi, even cookies, pretzels, and bagels. Store-bought pasta can cost $5 a pound. Now you can have fresh, healthy, homemade pasta for 30 cents a pound. Similar pasta machines sell for $160 or more. The Pasta Chef, complete with measuring cup, 10 assorted dyes, recipe book, and instructional video, only $99.95 from K-Tel.
Available at Zellers, Walmart, Kmart, Canadian Tire, Co-op stores, Home Hardware, True Value, Pro Hardware.
Newfoundland and Labrador, it's yours. Keep it clean.
Tonight, the lighter side of life at sea, from the Singing Cook of Nova Scotia.
And the gale is blowing sea mountains high.
In Newfoundland, a gentle farmer continues to hold off the big city.
I just hate to look at it, but they came certainly as far as they could.
And in the Badlands of Alberta, Canada's #1 dinosaur hunter.
This is not a large T-Rex. This is
is
small.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Badlands of southern Alberta. This area is known for its rich deposits of oil and coal, but there's something else buried in that.
I'll soak my dentures. Tuesday, I brush. Wednesday, I soap.
So it's your Atlantic Chrysler team.
Ice crystals removed. Ice smoothness remains. A revolutionary way to brew beer. Discover the bad ice. Ice smooth. Ice brewed. And the only one with a patent to prove it.
St. John's, Newfoundland, a big, modern city. Like most cities, it had a humble beginning. This one as a community of fishermen and farmers, most of them Irish. Well, the land I'm standing on is right in the middle of St. John's, and it is still as Irish as the old homeland itself.
Kunamwarin te hildoch iris eve, Ron Hynes o.
The language is Irish Gaelic, and the teacher is Ali O'Brien. His student is Jason Whalen, a young musician who wants to add some Irish songs to his repertoire.
How do you pronounce the third and fourth word? Norv.
Ali loves the ancient language, and anyone who wishes to learn it is welcome in his home.
Take a blessing from my heart to the land of Ireland.
Why do you keep Gaelic alive, Ali?
Just simply a love for the language. I think our family here were the only ones that had, of all the Irish families around, we were the only ones who had a tradition of Irish language.
Ali's full name is Aloysius Patrick O'Brien, and his roots are just as Irish. His great-grandfather came to Newfoundland from Ireland back in 1818. He built this old farmhouse on a country hillside, planted vegetables, and raised livestock. Now, back in those days, St. John's could boast over 400 farms like the O'Briens. But all that has changed. St. John's went through a building boom, so new roads and new subdivisions pushed into what once was farmland. A lot of changes here.
Tremendous changes.
From their hillside perch, the O'Briens watched as the city closed in. Describe that view for me, Ali, when you were a kid growing up. What did you see out here?
I saw all farms, practically the whole countryside there was filled with farms. Right below us there was Wickham's, and immediately to the east of that was Egan's, and immediately to the west was O'Neill's.
Every name an Irish one.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
What do you feel when you look out at this now? What do you fill up with?
Oh, I just hate to look at it. I think there's desecration of that lovely valley.
Ali need only take a short stroll down the country lane from his farmhouse to step out of the past into the reality of modern-day St. John's.
There are two sidewalks and a fairly wide roadway which end right at our boundaries. They're much like swords pointing towards us.
No one has actually transgressed your boundaries.
Oh, no, they haven't. Not 1 inch. But they came certainly as far as they could.
Ali shares the family farm with 2 brothers. Mike does most of the chores, looking after the 10 head of cattle. John spent his working life off the farm as a carpenter.
At least you'll have a nice few potatoes this year.
Ali still does a little farming and looks after a small vegetable garden.
End of October is the day you start digging potatoes.
But arthritis has slowed him down, and he has to hire help at harvest
I'll
time.
go to town, so they're going to be a half-decent crop for you this year?
I think so.
The truth is, the O'Briens don't use most of their 38 acres. But despite several offers from developers, the brothers have refused to sell. If they offered you $1 million,
We have been offered $1 million, some years ago.
$1 million?
Oh, yes.
And you said no to it?
That's true.
Why?
How can I answer it? As I say, the alternative. We wouldn't fit into that kind of life.
You don't think the O'Briens could be happy on the 10th floor penthouse or something?
I'm certain that never be happy.
Never?
No.
Are you against development?
No, I'm not really. But there must be some way you can have development and retention of some of the natural beauties as well.
But the O'Brien brothers are getting on in years. And since all 3 have remained lifelong bachelors, there are no O'Brien children to take over the farm when the brothers are gone. Only distant relatives. Will relatives ultimately inherit the farm?
Yes, I think that's the way to go. I think it should be passed on.
Stay in the family.
That's right.
That's the Irish tradition.
Yes, that's right.
You can write the deed up in Gaelic.
Yes, that's true.
Send it to town council and say, here's the deed. Decipher this one. But until that day comes, Ali O'Brien will keep an eye on things, especially that road that runs right up almost to his front door. And if there are people who still have ideas about turning Ali's beloved farm into a subdivision, well, they should know one thing. Beneath his gentle exterior, Ali O'Brien has a bit of Irish temper.
Beware the anger of the patient man.
Are you a patient man?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes, so be careful. I have my stick.
Food in the wrap. First thing they'll praise and the first thing they'll curse.
It's the festive season, and once again, Swiss Chalet is bringing...
I'll watch a movie with you, Timmy.
history of Canadian music. Figgy Duff, a retrospective. Jigs, reels, ballads, and their own unique originals. 19 tracks on one CD, 2 songs never before released, and more than 60 photographs from private collections in a 16-page CD booklet. Here is your opportunity to own the best of the Newfoundland band that became a legend. Figgy Duff, a retrospective, is in stores now.
It was that kind of night, nostalgic, the time for remembering days gone by, and the heyday of a Newfoundland legend known as Figgy Duff, a group that became the country's premier voice in Celtic rock music. 20 years later, with the launch of a retrospective album, the music community played tribute.
Figgy Duff was an extraordinary band. They were an extraordinary bunch of musicians, and in an extraordinary time. They brought together a whole pile of Newfoundlanders, a generation of Newfoundlanders, maybe 2 generations of Newfoundlanders, into an awareness of ourselves as an artistic culture.
They were all there, faithful fans, fellow musicians, and Figgy Duff alumni. Over the years, most of the province's top traditional musicians played with the Duff. Many of them reunited for this occasion, with one notable exception, founder Noel Dinn. A Celtic rocker ahead of his time, Dinn's driving rhythms on drums and bodhrán drove the band until his untimely death from cancer in July of '93.
His energy and drive, I mean, I still miss that, you know, I mean, that kind of determination and some people would say pig-headedness, but it's unusual. You don't find people with that amount of drive and passion. I've never seen it in anybody else.
Pamela Morgan was the lead singer with Figgy Duff. She was just 16 years old when Dinn spotted her in a play in Grand Falls and persuaded her to hit the road.
What are you doing, Ellie?
To explore the province's nooks and crannies in search of the Celtic connections.
Before I leave the land.
And thus began a kind of musical mission, a shared vision that grew, intensified, and embraced the full spectrum of ancient traditions. It was a musical journey that took them around the world. Through Figgy Duff, Newfoundland's Celtic roots were brought back to Europe and introduced to the United States at heritage festivals like this one in New Orleans. It was taken to the streets in Montreal and other Canadian cities, and it was celebrated in fine style at home.
Well, I lived and breathed Figgy Duff for, you know, well, for almost 20 years, and it's almost too early to say. I mean, I still feel like, you know, I'm left-handed, so my left arm is cut off. I just feel as if, you know, I still haven't fully recovered from the fact that, I mean, when we were doing Figgy Duff, it was something you never thought was going to end, you know, and we just, when I started, and even as I got older, I mean, I just felt sort of immortal, really, and you don't ever think that it's going to close, you know.
It lasted nearly 20 years, boasted as many members, and released 4 albums. After the Tempest, Figgy Duff, Weather Out the Storm, and finally, Downstream. But Morgan says Downstream was not the most fitting farewell.
Downstream was, well, in my opinion, a great album, but it's very, very somber, and it's very dark, and it was, in a lot of ways, it was a final statement for Noel, and he knew that. But it didn't sort of project the joy that a lot of Figgy Duff's music had, and there was no traditional music on it. So I didn't feel it was a proper album to close on.
So the retrospective album, like its launch, blended the best of Figgy Duff's work, featuring the talents of members who contributed along the way.
It's not so much a memory, because it's something that still lives. It's a feeling of having participated through a piece of Newfoundland's history musically, having been part of a band from its roots and seeing it now 20 years later being celebrated. It's a great sense of having been a part of it, you know, a sense of pride.
And the Celtic tradition has been firmly established now across the country, primarily due to the efforts of Figgy Duff. In the midst of the current revival of roots music, it's hard to imagine that 20 years ago, Figgy Duff stood alone, refusing to quit. And because of that, current traditional hotshots like Great Big Sea have had an easier time of it.
It's because of the groundwork that had been laid by so many good East Coast bands, like Figgy Duff, like, you know, like the Irish Descendants, like ourselves, like Rollins Cross, you know, all these bands that are, you know, forging on to make this music accessible to all ages.
Likewise, the nationally acclaimed Irish Descendants. After Noel Din's funeral, Darcy Broderick acknowledged the music community's debt.
He'll be certainly missed for what he did. He's brought the music across the world to the world stage, and I guess we're going to have to keep up his good work.
But Figgy Duff's impact extended far beyond traditional borders to other realms, including reggae and various alternative styles, even to other generations. Younger musicians who never actually heard the band, only of them.
Figgy Duff blazed trails that you wouldn't be able to assess what they've done for bands that are come to Newfoundland after them, following along the paths, just to make people in the world stand up, take recognition of any musical talent come out of Newfoundland is what they did, and they blazed those trails, knocked down a lot of barriers, and for the amount of years short that they may be that Noel Din lived, he's probably added years to people like me and my life that don't have to maybe knock down so many hard doors because they're already knocked down by Noel Din and Figgy Duff.
Well, I mean, Figgy Duff were, without even having to hear their music, there's a certain association that Figgy Duff had with them that for any musician in Newfoundland is really important. You look at the ultimate independent success story, real grassroots support, building up a fan, touring base, and all that kind of stuff. They just kind of prove that being a musician in Newfoundland, you can make it.
It lets me know that we at least somehow accomplished what we set out to do in the beginning, which was to make Newfoundland music more aware to a broader spectrum of people. And that all those really rough, raunchy tours we did in the back of the van across the country and back and forth wasn't in vain.
And so, with a final fling, Figgy Duff, the band, is put to rest. But the music lives on, and the spirit which found an instrument in Figgy Duff continues to find expression in those who treasure the past enough to make it part of the future. But there is life after Figgy Duff. The members have all gone on to form other bands, including Pamela Morgan, who plans to release her first solo CD in the new year. And speaking of first CDs, a fisherman from Petty Harbor is out to prove there's life after cod as he trades fish. Dermot O'Reilly has been part of the Newfoundland music scene for nearly 30 years. So news of his recent heart attack prompted a heartfelt response from fellow musicians. Apparently, one of the biggest benefits of the local music scene is how musicians always band together for one of their own.
Well, I'm ready for you. I hope you're ready for me.
And that's it in a nutshell, the insurance policy of the Newfoundland musician. the benefit concert, the support of your pairs when times get tough.
You need the money to keep your mortgage going, or you're putting food on the table for your family, and if you're a musician, you don't have that luxury most of the time, and so these kind of benefits are just fantastic, you know.
And Dennis Parker should know, himself a transplanted musician from England. A few years ago, it was his heart attack, his benefit concert, his bills.
I think it's very special in that way because people are so close together and closely knit that it's wonderful that something like this today is going to, you know, make it much easier for Dermot to get through the next few months, you know.
Dermot O'Reilly has been a mainstay of the music scene since 1967. An Irish import with such groups as Ryan's Fancy and the Sons of Erin. In recent years, he's pursued a solo career that includes both studio and video production. And over the years, he's done his share of benefits, shared the stage with most of the province's musicians. And most, it seemed, turned out to return the favor. Friends Fergus O'Byrne, Jim Joyce and Kelly Russell were on deck to lend their respective hands to the occasion and voice their concern.
The reason that we've all come together today is to put together a benefit for Dermot O'Reilly. Now, you all heard that Dermot had a heart attack just before New Year's Eve, and I've been up to see him in the hospital. He's coming along, but we got to give him some time, and hopefully this will give him some money to help him along for a couple of months till he gets back on his feet.
Meanwhile, these feet were in fine form. A revamped version of Tickle Harbour turned up to give its support, as did one half of Rollins Cross, otherwise known as the Panting Brothers, along with drummer Philip Dinn. For Dinn, and for Pamela Morgan, the evening was a poignant reminder of another concert 4 years ago for the late Noel Dinn of Figgy Duff.
It has to be this way because no one else is going to help us, really, unless we help each other. So it's great like that. And I just still think that the spirit is one of the most important aspects of the whole thing.
Let me see the golden ray. Phyllis Morrissey agrees. She and Dermot go back a long way musically. She says it's a shock when something like this happens to one of your contemporaries, but a benefit helps the road to recovery.
Because when they know that so many people are out rooting for them and caring for them, I mean, it's got to have a great effect on the heart, right? It's healing.
For younger musicians, like the lads in Connemara, heart attacks and other illnesses may seem a long way off. But theirs is an uncertain existence anyway, and this kind of insurance is encouraging.
It's nice to see everybody pulling together when one of us is in need, so I don't mind doing something like this for another musician because the day might come when I'll need it.
And even as benefit concerts go, this one was extraordinary. So many musicians offered their help that 2 venues had to be used simultaneously. Close to 700 people showed up throughout the evening, and several $1,000s were raised.
I think that it's special because it's small, and we're probably closer knit than a lot of other larger centers. And, well, there's not a lot of work around, so people are usually available. If there's a benefit on the go, there's a lot of musicians who would be available.
So it's a pretty risky business financially. Why do you keep doing it?
With me, I think it's a calling. I can't give it up. It's a calling.
And that's good news for local audiences who say an evening like this makes sense any way you look at it.
But the most appreciative of all was Dermot O'Reilly himself, who sent thanks from the hospital. Overwhelmed with the outpouring of affection, he claims that despite all that has happened, he still believes he's a very lucky person. And that's intermission for Tuesday. We'll see you again on Friday.
I know a lot of his fans are wishing Dermot well, and just wanted to point out that we said at the beginning of Deborah's intermission that Dermot had been a member of the Irish Rovers. Wrong. He did play with a number of groups, but we certainly remember him very well for Ryan's Fancy.
He was a rover from Ireland, no question about
that. Too.
Last week, Deborah Collins reported on Rising Tides Review 95, and tonight, theater critic Peter Gard tells us what he thinks of the show.
Rising Tides annual review is like a sick uncle. Some years it gets better, some years it sinks to the very edge of death. However, the review never dies and leaves you its money. It never actually recovers and becomes fun. Now, the real fun comes from watching the audience. At halftime, everyone compares notes. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I heard it's going to be 10 times worse. Anyone with even a remote chance of getting skewered shows up looking glum, like they're waiting for the x-rays from the dentist. Of course, what they're really desperately afraid of is that they won't get mentioned. Like poor Jack Harris this year, John Murphy, Andy Wells, Lynn Verge even only got a tiniest nod. One has to wonder what hideous offense they committed in 1995 to be left out of the review. I caught Miller Air and Susan Shirk rushing into the second half, hoping that the Cabot 500 Corporation might rate 2 skits. No such luck. John Efford removing the wing nuts from snowplows was far more important. 1995 was a banner year for idiocy, and it was hard not to be hopeful that the review might pick up on this. Churches claiming Uncle Clyde was going to cancel Christmas. A new bloom on John Murphy thanks to Sheila Guy. Cabot 500. Brian Tobin, Lynn Verge. They're pretty funny. But with an unerring sense for the jugular, this year's review went for John Efford and Loyola Sullivan. You can do either of them with an old dirt mop for a wig and the same crooked accent. Several cast members did Efford, and not one was as remotely funny as Efford himself. Let's face it, it's high time Rising Tide hired Efford to write material. The business of not paving the road to Trinity until after 1997, so tourists won't wear it down. Or hauling vehicle inspections off at a time when nobody can afford to fix their car. This is funny stuff. The fact that the review failed to work Efford into something really funny points to the heart of what is wrong with the review. Limited vision, half-finished skits, go-nowhere dialogue. Now, the less said about this year's theme, the better. The 60s. What a drag. Talk about a square idea. Wells, Crosby, and Smallwood, they were battling it out back in the 60s, and Newfoundlanders were returning home to find their roots. The cast wasn't up to these ideas. Then why pick the 60s? It was the music, man. Lots of great music, familiar lyrics. The bummer is, the set. It looked like a closing out bin at Byway. So did the costumes. As usual, there were 30 or 40 minutes of real material in there somewhere, so when you see the hour version on TV, you'll be amused. Now, the saddest moment for me this year was when the cast did Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. It's a long time since the review aspired to be anything better than being Newfoundland's Laugh-In. Needless to say, they got the show down pretty good. Who knows? Next year they may do Carol Burnett. Review 95 did a better job of Laugh-In than they did of their own politicians and Baywatchers. I mean, if Donna Butt can make 9 actors from Newfoundland sound like bad Hollywood actors pretending to be Newfoundlanders, I've underestimated her power as a director. Who knows what she'll come up with in 1996.
Well, thank you very much, Peter Gard, and we should be flattered we made it.
It was to be the biggest and best showcase the province had ever seen. The Year of the Arts. Scheduled for 1997, it would celebrate a culture that was 500 years old, with music, dance, theater, and visual art. It was the brainchild of the now-defunct Cabot 500 Corporation, and the arts community was told, the sky's the limit.
And they were told to dream. At that point, they were told, we don't want to put a limit on it. We want to see what kind of projects are going to come in before we decide on this. And as a result, a lot of people didn't buy in, but a good many people did, too. We still received 150 applications for the program, with people, applications from $2.5 million to $2,000, you know, I mean.
Follett says from there, the Arts Council designed the Year of the Arts at a projected cost of more than $3 million. $2 million artists would raise themselves through corporate donations and the like. But to make it all happen, they still needed $1.2 million from the Cabot Corporation.
That's right. Actually, the day that we were expecting to hear word on how much money we were actually going to get was the day that the Cabot Corporation was shut down.
The provincial government then took over the planning of the 500th anniversary and scaled it down considerably, including the Year of the Arts.
When we looked at the final documents, we found that we could only offer in the range of 500,000, which is why we had the meetings and have now gone back, recognizing that the planning that they did really was for naught, I guess, and they're very frustrated about that, and understandably so, and that a very limited series of events can now be undertaken for less than half the amount of money they were hoping to receive.
Number one is that the proposal can't happen. That proposal can't happen, and a Year of the Arts can't happen. I mean, we needed to have government support in order to trigger all this other funding that was going to come in. At this level, $500,000 is just not possible, and the Year of the Arts is history on that kind of money.
There would be no reason to come here to the Newfoundland, Mr.
Grimes acknowledges the reduced funding means a whole new kettle of fish. Fewer events, in fewer regions, in fewer artistic disciplines. But he claims $500,000 is nothing to sneeze at.
Are you satisfied as minister that the arts and cultural aspects of the province will be satisfactorily showcased in '97?
I think it'll be showcased in '97 above and beyond what it could hope to be in any other year, with the infusion of this 500,000 and the monies for other specific events that will give certain segments of the arts community an opportunity to showcase themselves and their talent. But I think I also understand the great frustration and disappointment because they were led through an exercise that was hoping for a very different outcome than this.
I think everybody feels a bit used.
Tara Bryant is a visual artist who submitted a couple of proposals for the Year of the Arts. As she awaits word on their fate, she contemplates all the lost opportunities for local artists, on one hand, and on the other, government's large investment in next year's international choral and Irish festivals.
It seems incredibly short-sighted to me to be spending money to bring somebody like the Chieftains who tour all the time. I think that the number of people who actually will plan a trip to Newfoundland in 1995 to see the Chieftains I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that it's unfortunate that government is squandering this golden opportunity to really promote all of the wonderful things that happen here all the time, that will be here in '97, '98.